Hey everybody, Simone here with Bulletproof Business Growth. As always, with some ideas and insights, what to pay attention to when you are growing and scaling your business. So we've been talking a lot about how to optimize your team to produce more profits. And that's first and foremost focus for most businesses. And that also means that you must optimize your hiring process to get the right people on the bus with the right processes and the right leadership so that you can really maximize their performance. Because what you want here, yes, we know you want more profits. You want to build a winning self-led team that can solve problems on their own. You want to make sure that they can actually lead your day-to-day without you having to be in it all the time. And when you want growth, look, the only way that you can build sustainable growth is when you have this in place. You have to have the right people with the right processes and the leadership to top off so that they can be that autonomous, self-led team that can solve their own problems. So otherwise, if you don't have that, right, what I see all the time is a lot of our clients come in and it's not like they don't have great businesses. It's not like they're not functioning, but what happens is they start growing and things start getting a little bit out of whack, and the more they grow, the more out of whack they get, and at some point it becomes utter chaos and they don't know what to do at that point. So it becomes not sustainable, and then it implodes. Like, as an example, I just talked to a client of ours who just made the Inc. 5000 list, but they know that they can't sustain what they've been doing because they all have been overworking. They're all far past their capacity. There's some things in place and some things aren't. There's really no good organization. So they're all kind of hanging on by the skin of their teeth and making it, but they know if they push any harder or any further, they're going to fall apart. So you can't sustain if you don't fix what's going on the inside first. So part of when you think about it is, like, as a leader, you are absolutely responsible for the results of the organization or for the lack thereof. So exceptional leadership is non-negotiable. The further the further you want to go, the faster you want to grow, the better your leadership has to be. So just think about this for a moment. Most of you would agree that there's no way that you can grow and scale as a company if you don't have good SOPs in place, right? If you don't have standardized operating procedures, well, if everybody is doing everything in their own way and nothing is standardized, well, you know you're going to waste a ton of time, money, and momentum because some people might get it and some people might not. So nobody would agree that this can be done. But then why would anybody think that they could grow or scale a company without leadership processes in place, right? So the faster you grow, the more pressure builds on any gaps you have. So when you hire or you promote somebody or somebody within your company moves around, you must set them up to win. So what they need from you as the CEO, as the owner first, is clarity. So we teach a very specific process for clarity that gives everybody not just the things to do, but also the context in where done, the purpose, and how everything fits together. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how those things fit, because most business owners focus on the basic level of delegation. And if you haven't heard me talk about it, there's tons of episodes that have that in it. So look for the 3 levels of delegation. But what it basically means is what most people focus on is just the day-to-day stuff that needs to get done. And how it works in most teams is somebody tells somebody else what to do. And that's the only way things get shifted around. So that means the person who gets told what to do is just executing on a basic task without thinking about, why am I doing this? How does this fit into the bigger picture? How does that impact the organization? How could I do it any better? If I did it this way, what would happen to the person next to me, right? So it's all about giving them basic tasks or the to-do list, and you're focusing on teaching and training those tasks so work gets done, but you don't give them any context that really helps them understand how that all fits together. So the how part, the actual how you do something is great. People definitely need to know how to get the job done, but it's fairly meaningless when that's the only communication that you have. That's like basic effectiveness when it's taught without the what. And the what is the bigger picture, right? So you have to help them understand the how always has to fit into the framework of the what, right? We have to tie that together, because the what is the big picture that gets everything connected, that connects the dots for them. So the why absolutely matter, and how it ties into the big picture and who is impacted. So anytime somebody joins the organization or anybody is moved into a different seat, we want to give them this bigger picture. People have to understand the scope of their role, how it impacts the organization, and how what they do affects everybody else. So when you think about you're growing, you're scaling, well, that also means your team has to be involved with producing more profit. It can't just be you. Your team has to understand that their role is only successful when what they do contributes to producing profit. And, it's sometimes a little hard to get, because, we all know a sales role or a marketing role immediately impacts profit, but customer service does. Customer satisfaction does, product does. There's like every role in the company, when it's done right, should contribute to profit. So to do this effectively, you have to have a team that is self-led, that is autonomous, that can solve their own problems, and that can make independent decisions without having to involve you at all levels, because they get the business. So this is something that most business owners don't even want to consider, that every single person on their team has to understand the business. Maybe not at every single level, but they have to understand the basic function of the business. And that's why we have to give them this context. So context comes first. So just think about this. Like everything people do could be done in a myriad of different ways. And we still have to show them how is it done best, the best way possible for the organization, so it's the most effective, the most profitable, and the most in alignment with where the company is going. Because actions can be very short-sighted, and that can work for the immediate future, but it can set really big roadblocks in the future that's further down the line. So we want to make sure that we help people have the understanding what that is. So that's why in our program, we don't just teach people how to use KPIs or how to plan with OKRs, because that is a very limited view, a very limited slice of business. It's not done holistically. So to do this right, you have to tie this in with direction, behavior, history, and future. Right? So that's like the basic elements of planning are those. It's direction, it's behavior, it's how you do stuff and how it's measured, and then history and future. So when you're in that place where you are hiring for a new level, you have to start by giving absolute clarity. And the clarity that you're providing here, there's lots of different levels of clarity, but the clarity that you're providing are, what are the top 3 outcomes that this role owns? So this is kind of so basic and so often not practiced, because look, all of us are, whether you're the CEO or not, but you're in the business all day long. Your head is in the business, even if you're providing strategy. And most likely the level of companies we have, we're all wearing different hats. We're all trying to be flexible. We're all trying to take care of each other and the business. So it is easy to lose track or lose focus of what's really important. So you give the clarity of what the top 3 outcomes are for the role that somebody owns. Like, what do they own? How does what they do, how does it directly contribute to company strategy and helps the company move forward? So I know we started this talking about hiring process, because that's exactly what we're talking about, because this is where that conversation starts. This is where you set them up to win, and this same conversation in a slightly different way on a slightly different level continues all the way through their employment, right? This continues in your leadership practice with them every single week at every single level. Otherwise, you don't have a company that is scalable. I just talked to one of our clients who I've worked with for years at this point, and every time I talk to him, there's a new iteration, and he's so conscious around that the new iteration still follows the same processes, because every single growth spurt they've been able to do, they have just dug deeper into these processes, and every single person is aligned with it. And that's the only way you can scale sustainably. So when we start with hiring, right, this is where the practice starts, and the consistent practice of this is the continuation to win. And this is like where I really emphasize the word practice, because this means we're going to practice this continuously, consistently. So this is the same thing for hiring and also for your high performance culture and practice. And when, think about this, a lot of times when you hire somebody new, right, you're doing it not necessarily because you forecasted it and planned it and set it up carefully and made sure that everything was in place. No, there's a gap, a hole in your organization, in your business, and all sorts of energy was draining through that hole, and you were at the end of your wits, and you just hired a body to fill that hole. So a lot of times that's what happens. You bring in somebody new, or you move people around because you need some relief. And then the other thing that happens is, like, once you get that new person in, you're just taking a deep breath because you're hoping this person is going to change everything. And then you do we call you dump and run. Like, you dump the person in the deep end of the pool and go, hey, good luck, hope you can swim. And you go your merry way, and you focus on, or you try to focus on what you've been wanting to focus on. But of course that never goes well. So what happens generally is within the next 90 days, you end up being totally frustrated. This is not working, and you're wondering if it's time to give up or fire this person or whatever, right? So the reason for that really is, though, that you didn't give them the clarity that they needed, the direction that they needed to understand how this role fits into the whole and what levers to push to contribute to profit. So even in the very beginning, this is the kind of thinking and the kind of focus that you want to build in people's brains. This is the conversation you keep wanting to have, because it's very, very easy to be very busy all the time, but it's much harder to understand how to make distinctions in that busyness and to make sure that what you're busy with is actually impactful, right? So, and your job as the CEO really is to design the roles in your company, design your org chart with the goals and expectations. So of course, work needs to be able to get done, but also you need to do it so that you can maximize productivity and profitability. Those two always need to get together. So the big conversation that you have with every single one of your team members, if you're smaller, or every one of your leaders, if you have multiple levels, is to help them understand how do you help with profitability. And generally, people do this exactly backwards. They need help. They're hiring for this glaring gap. Maybe they have some onboarding practices, maybe they don't. And then 3 months later, when this person isn't focused on producing profit and now it's costing profit, then everybody freaks out and asks, wow, how can I make this role be profitable? How can I actually afford to keep this role in the company? So the problem here is that every role has to make money, or your profit margin is going to take a giant dive. So you can't ask this question as in, how's this role going to make us money and move the company forward, as an afterthought. You have to ask this question far before you hire. So if you didn't hire with this focus, and if you didn't hire with this conversation, the problem that happens then is you're creating a huge disconnect with the team member that you brought on, because they think they got hired for this thing, when, a few months later you kind of change the conversation. You go, what, actually, we really want you to do this thing over here. And they might be excited and interested in that, or they may not be, and they may kind of feel like you did a bait and switch with them. So when we do that, there's a lot of time, money, and momentum lost. So of course you can go back and redesign the role, and hopefully that person in the role is willing and able to shift gears. But what if they don't? You've already wasted a ton of your time and money and momentum to train them, to get them be part of the team, to do all this stuff, and then it turns out they're not the right fit. So it's very often that there's no success, because when we go down that route is because now their expectation and their purpose doesn't align with your expectation and purpose. So the most important step in hiring is to understand how you align your purpose and their purpose to match, because otherwise they're not going to show up as those incredible A players who will put their life on the line basically to make sure they do an amazing job. So you might want to take a moment and think about this. If growth is slow in your company, and if it feels like the reason for that is that you don't have team members that are showing up at the level that you need them to, that they're not executing like expected, it's that you may have made those changes like this, and that means you're not just losing momentum, but you're also losing credibility with this person. So these are all questions that you absolutely have to ask before you hire somebody, promote, so that you can make sure the direction is clear and the alignment is clear. So the question that you want to ask is, what are the 3 things that they do? What are the 3 outcomes that they own that directly impact profitability in a positive way that makes this role worth it, that produces business? And because if that's not clear, like you were saying earlier, especially when somebody's new, there's going to be a ton of stuff just tossed at them. And it's way too easy to lose track in the chaos of, what do we actually need to do here? So it's far too easy to have things get buried, to get things diluted, to get lost in tasks and busy work, which of course is not producing profit, it's sucking profit. So we want to make sure that we help everybody understand what are those 3 things that they're most focused on, what are the 3 outcomes that they're responsible for above and beyond everything, right? So this is so that they can really have the direction to sort out the chaos from the calm. And this is what makes that happen. everybody always has far too much to do. They don't know what to focus on otherwise. And it's your role to help them understand what to prioritize. So our vision, our process that we teach is a holistic process because it takes care of all of these aspects. So we always start with, hey, what's the bigger vision that everybody understands how they fit into it, what their scope is, how they're affecting company strategy and profitability, and what their benefits are, but also what their responsibilities are. So that's like number one. And then we break that down into a step-by-step plan that is collaborative, that helps everybody really be in sync and focus on the right priorities. And then once we have that plan, then we actually have something to communicate about on a weekly basis and make adjustments when we need to make those adjustments to make sure that the plan, instead of getting diluted and disconnected with time, it gets more and more dialed in for the right impact. So that's the holistic process that starts when you hire, and it perpetuates all the way through and always gets practiced in your company. So you want to really understand, it's like you want to help people understand what's more important. Is it, busy work, like sending emails and organizing files and I don't know what they do, or pushing for sales or making connections with customers, or like you have to help them understand what that is. So because in somebody's mind who doesn't understand their business, all tasks are created equal. There's their to-do list. They're going to run down that list and they're going to do it without any thought of what's actually impactful. So all roles have to be built around these priorities. So first is, what are the top 3 things that they must focus on? Second thing is, how will they actually achieve success in this? And then what are the specific, smart, measurable, attainable, timely, and relevant actions that they're taking here to make sure that they can get from A to B? And this creates the clarity that they need, that makes the distinction between these top 3 things and everything else. And one practice that we use, I do as the business owner for sure, is I have a strategic hour, my power hour, every single day, where I start the day without looking at my email, because that's what hijacks everybody's agenda immediately. And I focus on, what do we need to get done? How's that aligning with our plan? How's that aligning with the bigger plan? What do we need to make adjustments to? How do I get the rest of the team aligned so that they can be a part of this, right? So this is absolutely what you have to do to move the needle. And then, of course, the next thing is, once you retrain your team like that, what are the incentives that you can offer to help them move the needle so that you incentivize the behavior that you want to see? So think about, what is it that you want? You incentivize that. So you set clear targets so people can deliver clear actions and clear outcomes. So, and part of that is, incentives are awesome, but people too often understand incentives as just money. And yes, money is important. Everybody wants to make a good living, but for a lot of people, that is not actually what drives their behavior. So you, as the business owner, or if you're not the leader, you have to teach this to your leadership, is to really get to know their teams and understand what is driving each team member. For some people, that is absolutely money. So if you can design an incentive plan for them that drives the behaviors you want to see, because they're also helping the business around money, okay, do it. For other people, it's more about impact. For yet other people, it's around growth. They want to keep getting better. They want to become the number one. They want to lead the department. They want to open, another location somewhere. Whatever it is, you have to know what that is so that you can incentivize the behavior you want to see, okay? So help them understand the vision, how the role fits into it, the scope that they're controlling, the way it fits all together, how the tasks that they do impact the greater whole. So we have that holistic process that we've been talking about. Now, as the CEO, as the leader, you are going to become the CRO, the Chief Reminding Officer, the broken record, that this is your conversation all day long. This is the conversation with your leaders. And guess what? This is the conversation your leaders need to have, be able to have with their teams. And if you have more levels, it needs to go all the way through from top to bottom, because that's what creates proactive, organized, thinking, strategic people. Now you have leaders at every single level, no matter what their role is and what the scope of the role is, right? So let's do a quick recap. Before you hire, understand how the role you're hiring for is moving the business forward. So just think about this very basically. If you want to make $1 million, how much capacity, if you want to make an extra $1 million, right? How much capacity does this new role add? If it's for a salesperson and each salesperson is going to make you 500, well, you need to add 2 or probably 3, because only 2 out of the 3 will probably work out. So you have to know these numbers about each role so that you can make the right decision. So hire holistically, include the vision, the behavior, the methods and metrics, the history, the future that they need access to. Then make sure that you give them a great onboarding plan that's specific, that gets revisited every week, where they get coaching and mentoring every week in a one-on-one, so you can help them understand how they can grow. And then make sure that you give everybody a growth plan so that they can make the best contribution to the company. Because when you think about this, it's like, who actually owns their success? First and foremost, it's you as the leader. When you set these things up right, you can produce productivity and profitability way, way faster than if you don't. So you get what you tolerate. You know, when you want a high performance culture, you need to be a high performance leader. And that means you have to provide your team with clear systems and clear structure so that your dream matches their dream, everybody's in alignment, and everybody shows up to make the biggest contribution to the company every single day. So I hope this helps. I hope this gives you a lot of answers. If you want more of this, if you want to actually play with this in detail, we have a free workshop coming up this next week, starting on Monday. It goes all the way through the weekend. And for an hour a day, we're going to take all these pieces apart and workshop them with you. So you're not only getting the theory, you're actually working through the pieces every single day. You're going to walk away with a clear plan and something to implement with your team immediately. So we're going to work on how to maximize your team so that they can produce more profit, and also making sure that part of that is that they become a problem-solving, self-led, autonomous group of people who are working together in a really holistic and beautiful way. So make sure you register. I'll put the link for the registration into the comments, and I will see you next time.